On August 24, 1990, the bodies of two 17-year-old university students were found stabbed to death and brutally mutilated in their apartment in Gainesville, Florida. No one knew that this murder was only the first of a string that would earn the murderer the nickname the Gainesville Ripper, and years later inspire the writing of the movie franchise Scream. Danny Rolling was born on May 26, 1954 to Claudia and James Rolling. Over the course of his childhood, his father would repeatedly physically abuse him, his mother, and his younger brother. By age 11, Rolling had picked up a dependency on drugs and alcohol to cope with the abuse. At age 14, he was caught by his neighbors peeking into their daughter's window. Rolling married at 19, but his wife divorced him 4 years later after he threatened to kill her. On August 24, 1990, the bodies of University of Florida freshmen Sonia Larson and Christina Powell were found in their apartment. Both had been duct-taped, raped, and stabbed several times in the back. Before leaving the scene, Rolling had posed the bodies in sexually provocative positions. The next day, Rolling broke into the apartment of 18-year-old Krista Hoyt. Finding that she was not home, he waited in the apartment for her to return. He then ambushed and murdered her in much the same way as previous victims. After returning to his campsite, Rolling realized that he had lost his wallet and returned to the crime scene, thinking he had left it there. At that time, he decapitated Hoyt and posed her body sitting at the edge of her bed with her head on a shelf facing the corpse. By the third murder, panic had spread across Gainesville. Students changed their daily routines, added locks to their doors, and slept in groups. Many University of Florida students dropped out over the next several weeks and left out of fear for their lives. 2 days later, Rolling broke into the apartment of Tracy Paulez and Manny Taboada and murdered both. He did not pose their bodies as in his previous murders and skipped town shortly after. Florida police were alerted to striking similarities between the Gainesville murders and the triple homicide of Julie Grissom, her father Tom, and her 8-year-old nephew Sean in Shreveport, Louisiana 10 months before. Shortly after this connection was made, a Shreveport resident reported Danny Rolling to police, who she had met at church several years before and who had made several disturbing comments to her and her husband. Police did not have to search far for Rolling, who had been arrested on September 7th, just 10 days after his last murder, for a supermarket robbery in a nearby town. Police then connected him to another robbery in Gainesville. The robber's campsite had been found, at which several tools and a cassette had been collected as evidence. Only then did police listen to the cassette and found that it contained recordings of Rolling in which he alluded to the murders. Rolling was charged with the 5 murders a year later after deciding to plead guilty only the night before court. While in prison, he wrote a biography with a woman who was his fan and later fiancée. He was executed by lethal injection on October 25, 2006, with 47 witnesses present. His last words were a verse from a religious hymn that he had written.